What was your I shouldn't have said that moment when talking to a customer? I'm a dude. And had somewhat long hair in high school. I was working at the local supermarket and this older woman, 50s or 60s, asked if I was wearing a wig. I responded by saying no. And replied with the same question. After which she gave me an appalled look like I had called her a cunt or something. In high school I worked as a dry cleaner. Woman comes in. Her dad died. Wants me to iron the suit he would be buried in. I ask her what kind of start she would like. She asks what I recommend. I, in all of my infinite wisdom, said well I'm assuming he won't be moving around much so a light starch is fine, and then immediately apologized and mentally died inside. I was very pregnant, about 5 months pregnant with twins, working at a call center, and I got a cold transfer from customer relations from a super rude customer. I greet him nicely and he interrupts me and asks, "Can you see all my information and what I need, or do I need to repeat it all over again?" Starts yelling and rants for about 3 minutes, and being the sensitive bull I was, I told him, "Sir, this is the first time I've talked to you. You just got transferred and need time to read the notes, but it's very unfair that you're treating me like this. I was being super polite and you're yelling at me for no reason. Now it was my rant for about 2 minutes. I will place you on hold and I'll read the notes. Okay?" Double quote. When I put him on hold I was convinced that if my superior was listening I was going to be in trouble, cause in CS they want you to let people walk over you, and this customer was going to complain about me. But surprisingly when I came back from hold he sounded ashamed. He apologized to me and admitted he had been a dick to me for no reason and that he wanted to start all over, and the rest of the call was super smooth, but I was very scared while on hold. This is my time to shine. Was 17. Working at a Meijer. Slightly older gentleman comes up with a basket on his arm. Starts unloading groceries. Nothing too unusual. Except as I'm packing the bags on the carousel. He's struggling to keep up reloading his little basket. He didn't seem old enough to really be struggling. But I figured maybe something was wrong, and so I innocently asked, "Do you need a hand?" Double quote. Guy shoots me a look and stares full eye contact at me for like a minute. I'm confused. Thinking maybe he misheard me. Maybe a little cognitively impaired. And open my mouth to repeat myself. He smiles. Pulls down the sleeve of his shirt. And reveals he in fact has a prosthetic hand. I never understood the phrase "melt into the ground" until that moment. I was almost in tears, I was so embarrassed. But fortunately the guy recognized I wasn't being a glib or shat. I was just trying to help him. And was kind enough to let me off the hook. I answered a customer call when I worked at a movie theater, and it was a couple asking me for directions to the theater from wherever they were. They were driving and getting frustrated with me. And I was kind of getting frustrated with them for being mad at me when I assumed they were talking to me on a smartphone. So at some point I said something like, "Most people would just use the internet." They did not like that. I used to work in the H&M call center, and this woman's package didn't arrive on the day our website said it would. Bearing in mind this was an order for H&M basic items which came to about $50. She said that because she had to take a day off work we now owed her lost wages, which amounted to $850. I said to her, "You took a day off work where you would have earned $850 to wait at home for a package that is worth $50. Do you seriously expect me to believe that?" Double quote. Long story short, she hung up when I saw through the obvious bullshit. I was on a call with a customer who was complaining and absolutely irate. I had only been on the job for a few weeks and was becoming flustered. There was literally nothing I could do to calm this person down or get him to accept my answers. I was finally about to get him off the line when he made a sarcastic comment to the extent of, "Wow, thanks. You've been such a great help." In my rush to say "no problem" or "you're welcome," I ended up saying "your problem" and hanging up. He called several times after that and I just ignored the calls because I was so exhausted. A customer came up to me asking about the shoes that were on sale for $29.99. I walked over to the fixture and showed him the sign said the jeans were on sale, not the shoes. I then said sometimes you have to read the whole sign. My co-worker had to turn around and walk off so he wouldn't hear her loin. I am really surprised I didn't get talked to about that. A customer tried to exchange cash with me and I told her no and explained that we can't as a policy to protect against fast change artists. She really suspiciously, in an exasperated voice, was like, but I'm obviously not a fast change artist. And without thinking that sounds like something a fast change artist would say. Double quote. Served a customer a salad and was called back almost immediately to the table. There was a cockroach in the salad. It was gross. I stupidly said. You didn't order that, did you? Double quote. This reminds me of an indecent when I was taking classes to be a medical assistant. One of the students got Chinese for lunch from a place around the corner. And it had a roach in it. I had a much worse experience involving rice that was mostly maggots. But I digress. Close bracket. She called the restaurant to complain and they asked her what kind of bug it was. The girl was livid and shouted at them. What kind of bug is on special? Double quote. Cracks me up every time I think of it. A guy came into where I worked and the first thing he said was something like, do you give discounts? Not any particular discount. He was just being a cheap ass. Somehow, without skipping a beat, I said, for what? Showing up? Double quote. I don't think he was happy with that. Tried waiting tables when I was 20 while in college. Time finally came for me to have my own table during the lunch hour. The lady training me was watching from a distance to give me feedback. So I got to the table and can only see two ladies, both with long grey hair in ponytails. I proceed to their table and say, good afternoon ladies. How are we doing today? They both turned to look at me. And holy shit. One of the women has a solid grey mustache. Wait a minute. That lady is a guy. And is with his wife. I tried to correct myself by saying, and gentlemen. The woman training me quickly came over to rescue me and she said, this is Adam. It's his first week. The guy who I referred to as a lady said something like, yeah, he's gonna need a few more weeks. And that was my last day in my career as a waiter. Worked in a furniture store. I had a customer who was yelling at me because we didn't have the product she wanted in stock. I told her we could order it in, but she would have to prepay and it would take 4-6 weeks to come in. She flipped out and insisted we should be selling her the floor model. I explained that we can't do that because of company policy. We frequently took orders. And if we don't have a floor model, we don't have any of the product to show customers. And therefore get no orders for it. She gets angry with me. Yells at me about how she drove for 2 hours to get here. And that I'm terrible at customer service. She demands my manager. I call into the stockroom. He comes out. Suddenly she's all sweet and quiet. And acts all nice. So that's okay. I'll look around for something else. It's too bad she couldn't tell me that. She just said I couldn't have it. My boss goes back into the stockroom. The lady looks around for a minute. And leaves. A moment later I look at a coworker. And say, I hate when customers don't believe you. And then go ahead and put on an act just for the boss. That woman acted and looked like a small, angry dog. She had come back in through the other door. And was literally right behind me. Somehow she didn't say anything and just walked out. From age 17-18 I worked the seafood counter at an upscale grocery chain now owned by Amazon. You know the one. I had a regular customer. A total knockout blonde who came in every day to buy fresh cod. Eventually I worked up the courage to flirt with her. Just a bit. Even though English was not her first language. She was well put together and I won't lie, I looked forward to serving her. Now the screw up. She returned to the store after dinner hour and said cod has worm. I checked it out and replied the worm is still moving, so that's how you know the cod is fresh. She just walked away. I'll never know the future cod lady and I could have had. Used to work at a butcher shop. We used to sell bags of bones for dogs and we regularly had people coming in looking for dog bones. Anyway, this regular came in and asked any dog bones and one of the older butchers from the back yelled out, "Nah, only beef and lamb bones, sorry." The whole place broke down in laughter and I thought to myself, I'll have to remember that one. So about an hour later a customer, an acquaintance from my school days comes in, asks for if we have any dog bones. So I reply, "Nah, only beef and lamb bones." There was an awkward silence. He looked me straight in the eye and said, "Go FCK yourself, you cunt," and stormed out of the store. It took me a few seconds to realize that maybe that joke wasn't the best to play on an Asian person. I'm a manager at a movie theater. We had a projector breakdown right as the movie was about to start. Being a kids movie, there was a large crowd of upset parents. One of the more irate dads is yelling at me and says, "You're the one who has to tell my 5-year-old son that he can't watch his movie." In my head I'm thinking, well, I don't know your kid or care about him at all. So that's when I bent down and calmly told this child, "You can't watch the movie." The father was not happy. A coworker at a call center for an internet service provider's tech support got this one. He was verbally walking her through a complex procedure over the phone. He knew exactly what she was seeing as he was doing this. We were good at our job. And the customer asked, "Are you able to see what's on my screen?" Double quote. He joked, "Yes. And that is a lovely pink bathrobe you're wearing." Double quote. She was wearing a pink bathrobe. And the front happened to be opened a bit and her boobs were partially exposed. I worked at a sandwich shop. One time a customer flipped his shit about the meatballs being cold. We compete and move on. He comes back next day and pulls the same shenanigans. He ate almost the entire sandwich and came up to me. I looked him dead in the eye. "So you're telling me the meatballs that are currently 185 are cold?" To which he replied, "Yes. They're freezing." "How can you know they're so hot?" I lifted up the tray of meatballs with steam rolling off of them and showed him the thermometer. "Well, you apparently don't have any qualms about shoving cold balls in your mouth." The dude threw a third of a meatball sub at me. The owner kicked him out and almost wept herself laughing. It was a good day. When I worked in a call center, a guy called in screaming at me about a game that was blacked out in his area. He felt that because he paid for the NBA League Pass he should be able to see anything he wanted. I told him that I agreed, but unfortunately we couldn't do anything about blackouts. He proceeded to berate me for another 5 minutes and finally I said, "Look man, I just work here." He lost his f-king mind, screamed at me in what I assume was Arabic and then hung up. My supervisor was over shoulder and fortunately was really cool about it, but I thought I was f-ked. This is a situation I have mentioned before, but it was a shouldn't have said that moment for sure. In this situation I was the customer. I have never responded well to random uncomfortable news. Once when I was in college I was getting a haircut and asked how the stylist's day was going. She said her day was going well but her dog died the night before. Without thinking I said, "Think of all the money you'll save on dog food." Instant regret. It's one of those things that pops into my head randomly as I try to sleep at night. Double quote. I was a server when I was 19-20. It was a summer day and I was serving the lunch rush on our patio. I had this couple in their 20s sit down and order. She got an Asian noodle salad, with the crispy noodles I think, and he got whatever he got. When I went to do the quality check of the meal, the woman told me her noodles were soggy. I apologized and told her I can bring it back and get her a fresh one. She refused it. I said I could bring her more crispy noodles on the side to add in. She refused that too. I made a couple other offers to fix the issue which she also turned down. Then she said, "I just don't want it to happen to anyone else. I'll eat it. But I just don't want anyone else to have this problem too." Double quote. Right away before I could even stop to think I said, "Oh. So you're a martyr?" Her boyfriend busted out laughing and she looked stunned. I immediately realized what I said and apologized profusely. Luckily the dude paid and I got a good tip anyway. I was talking to a woman the other day who was having problems with a spray bottle she had bought, mentioning it was really expensive. This was all in French, my second language. She asked where the product was, then said something I didn't understand. So I said, "So you wanna buy a new one?" in French. She switched to English, "Well, what do you think?" and then proceeded to lecture me on the difference between both and two. As if I didn't know. I mean, she seriously wasn't giving me much to work with. She was originally asking if she could return it, but she didn't have the product or the receipt. Like, what? I worked for Rent-A-Center a few years back and part of my job was calling all the customers who were late on payments. Dialed Big Rob and was unsurprisingly met by the answering machine. No big deal. I go into my voicemail spiel, but I get cut off. "Sorry, I didn't get that. Please leave your message after the beep." Double quote. This happens 3-4 more times until I finally lose my shit and scream at the answering machine, "What the FCK is wrong with you? You stupid piece of shit. What a worthless waste of 10 minutes. Clang the phone down and hit the truck to go run credit. Come back and the boss is staring daggers at me. Apparently the answering machine actually decided to record the last time and Big Rob had come down to the store personally to set me straight. We all laughed when I explained what happened. But they transferred the account to a different rep because the guy didn't believe the story. I work front desk in a behavioral health private practice. We see a lot of vets. I'm a super friendly and kind person who always strives to say the right thing to everyone who comes through the front door. A guy comes in and says he is having a bad day. He is a regular patient we see about once a month. I use the good old adage, every day above ground is a good day, thinking I can connect with him and cheer him up. He looks at me and says, "Yeah, I guess so." His son had killed himself the week before and he had just buried him. I wanted to die after I was made aware of what had happened and what I had said to him. In an effort to lift his mood, Fuuak, one of the 22 veterans daily that come home and kill themselves, I have never ever said the wrong thing more in my entire life, nor felt as bad about it. Still makes my heart ache just to think of it. I'm so sorry. One Christmas, work at a supermarket. Called to collect our online order asking us where our drive-through window was for it. Was a trolley full of groceries. Explained we don't have one on the phone and that they are collected from our service desk. Starts yelling and I'm like, "Sorry, but our back dock is too dangerous to have customers." She comes in after 15 minutes and demands one of us help her with her trolley as she can't do it as she has her kid which are all over the age of 5. My store is pretty busy now, we are calling priority alerts to the front end, and I say okay and proceed to help her with her trolley. She is parked a good 15-minute walk from my store in the opposite car park from my end of the center. We finally get to her car and I wish her a Merry Christmas and start to walk away and she scoffs and says, "Is that it? You're not going to put it into my car?" I explain I'm technically not even supposed to be this far from my store and I'm not supposed to put them into the car for safety reasons, and she starts saying some unpleasant things. I snapped and said, "Are you f***ing serious? It's Christmas, my store is busy as anything and you're complaining about me following my store policies. I'm walking away now and have a good holiday." Well, mine I stupidly emailed. We had this client who not only was a bitch but a stupid bitch. And I was already feeling salty with her because she shouted at me the day before. She was using our product online to create a test and was adding questions to the test. And came across a question she had been hoping to use, but that gave the message this item is no longer available. Because the question had been removed. The reasons behind the removal varies. Maybe it has a bug in it and will break the test. Maybe the other questions it is aligned to are no longer used. There are many reasons. But ultimately, it is no longer available. This client took a screenshot and emailed it to me and said, "What does this mean?" Well, rather than investigating the reason and providing a detailed response, I just replied with it means exactly what the message says. That item is no longer available. Let me know if I can help you answer any other obvious questions. My boss was not happy. When I was first starting in sales last year, I walked into my third or fourth customer's house and was a little sweaty and winded from the previous appointment. I sell hurricane windows, which requires me to spend time out in the sun measuring large homes and getting a little dirty. I walk into the customer's house, and his dogs proceed to sniff my ass and my crotch like I was hiding some treats. The customer, an older man, tells me they love sniffing everybody. I replied with, I'm pretty sweaty from my last job. I'll give them something to sniff. One of the most awkward things that's ever come out of my mouth. Didn't make the sale. I was known as the project manager who could take a screaming customer and, by the time I got them off of the phone, make them happy. Until one fine day this marginal customer, he always tried really hard to negotiate down, calls me screaming about we didn't deliver some items on time. I couldn't get him to calm down even when I told him that we informed him the day before via email and voicemail that the delivery had been refused. I let him rant a bit, but it was getting old, so I said, if you don't calm down and quit screaming like a pissed off 12-year-old, I'm hanging up. The cuss out, so I hung up on him. What he didn't know was my VP was sitting at my desk listening to him rant. So he calls back and starts screaming again. My VP, God love him and RIP Mike, grinned at me and said, you are our lowest profit margin customer, and if you're going to act like a jackass, we don't need or want your business, and hung up. We had a laugh over that, then headed to the local eatery for quesadillas and margaritas for lunch. God, I loved that job. I called it my hobby that I get paid to do. I work as a dental assistant. We had a new shipment of slow speed drills delivered. One of my co-workers handed me one and said, this one is fresh off the press. It'll cut through anything. Without thinking, I walked into the surgery where the patient was sitting and repeated what my co-worker had said to the dentist. The patient turned around and looked at us both with a horrified expression on her face and said, what do you mean it'll cut through anything? I can understand why she was surprised, because she was only in there for a clean. No drilling involved. I was absolutely mortified. Did not personally happen to me. But when I was a kid in my first restaurant job, one of the waitresses, the most modest and kind lady you can think of, tried to ask a man if he'd like cocktail sauce to go with his food. What actually came out was, do you want some cock sauce? Double quote. Everyone had a good laugh. But God, her face was so red. I was working at Tim Hortons. A really hot guy orders a fruit explosion muffin, a muffin with berries and a jam goo injected inside. They were a new menu item and he asked me if I liked them. I said not really, I have to be in the right mood to have something shoot warm goo in my mouth. Edit. I hate fruit goo. I don't like fruit pies. Or pastries. Not really a fan of jams. I totally didn't realize how sexual it sounded till about 5 minutes after he left. Then I was utterly mortified. This took place in either 1999 or 2000. I was working at a Walmart while going to school and starting to get stressed out with everything on my plate. I had a customer come in and ask where we kept our audio cassette holders. I told them that we don't carry them anymore, so they asked where they could buy them. Before my brain could come up with an answer, my mouth answered, an antique store. Thankfully they laughed at my answer. I had this customer that was ignoring her demon children screaming, kicking, and knocking things over in the store. When she was leaving and one of the kids was trying to steal something, I asked for it back. She went off about how I've hated them since they walked in and that I was racist, and in my frustration I said something along the lines of, no, I just think you're a shitty mom. It ended well. I wasn't fired and they never came back. I used to work at fast food restaurant that legit just work you to the bone. When I'm saying I was pulling doubles, like 6 AM to 6 AM. And I was really tired and I had just worked 3 back-to-back shifts and this guy pulled up to the window and he's all like, I hate your fries. I hate your sandwiches. I hate your fish. Your food always cold, and me being me, my instant response was, why do you come here then? Needless to say, I was sent home that day and got a write-up, but if anyone is interested in the guy's response, he said you're right, then pulled out of the drive-thru. I was working at a pet store and we sold those spray bottles for training dogs and cats. Anyways, customer comes in bitching that it's not working and how we are complete scum and con artists stealing her hard-earned money, so I decide to test it out. Filled the bottle up with water. Turned the lock on the nozzle, which the customer hadn't turned, and proceeding to spray the customer in the face. I stood there for a few minutes with the customer in silence thinking, did I just f-king do that? Then I said, see, it works, to try and break the tension. It made it worse. Owner tore me a new one. Manager loved it and had the security footage saved to the desktop of the office computer.